that's another group of problems of quadratic equations that we can solve without having to factor. And those problems will look along these lines here, where I'm going to have a square term and then equal to a constant. If I can simplify to that, then I can simplify by taking the square root of both sides of the equation. Now this is only going to work if my a is positive, because we can't take the square root of a negative number. When we do, there's going to be two answers. X is going to be equal to the square root of a, or x is going to be equal to negative of the square root of a. So you can see that, you're going to be able to see that right here in example A, where I have x squared is equal to 9. So if you think about it, there are two numbers that can make that true. Both a positive 3, because 3 to the second power is 9, and also a negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. So there's two answers. So here this fits the pattern here. So x squared is equal to 9. I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I'm going to say that x is equal to the square root of 9, or x is equal to negative of the square root of 9. So that means that x is 3, or x is negative 3. For example B, you can see that it's nice and simple, the same way where I have just the x squared over there and the 32 on the right, but I can't really take the square root of that 2. It's really ugly. So when we're working these problems, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to isolate the square term. So isolate means to get it alone. So for this one, since this is 2 times x squared, to isolate, I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides and get that x squared is equal to 16. Now I have it back into my x squared is equal to a form, so very simple. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I'm going to get that x is equal to the square root of 16, or x is equal to negative square root of 16. So that would be that x is 4, or x is negative 4. For example C, again we need to isolate. The x squared is not alone on that left side. So to isolate this time, I'm going to plus 7 on both sides and get x squared is equal to 13. So then I've got that situation where I can take the square root of both sides, and I get that x is equal to the square root of 13, or x is equal to negative square root of 13. And of course, we don't know either one of those numbers, so we can leave it in this form. D, a few more steps, so I need to undo step by step. So remember, the order is important. Reverse PEMDAS. So I'm going to subtract the 18 from both sides first. That'll give me 2x squared is equal to 36. 14 minus 86. What am I supposed to 3? Okay, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get that x squared is equal to 18. Now I have it simplified, and it's in a position where I can take the square root of both sides, and I will get that x is equal to the square root of 18, or x is equal to negative square root of 18. We'll skip over to F this time. So we'll isolate that x squared. So I'm going to add 25 to both sides and get 4x squared is equal to 25. Then I'll divide both sides by 4. So x squared is equal to 25 fourths. I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and that's going to give me that x is equal to the square root of 25 fourths. Well, that's going to be x is equal to the negative square root of 25 fourths. So I know the square root of 25 fourths because the square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of 4 is 2. So that's 5 halves and negative 5 halves for my answer. G, x squared plus 100. So I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides. I get x squared is equal to negative 100, and I cannot take the square root of a negative 100. So we're going to say that there's no solution. So technically no real solution on that. H, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and I get that x squared is equal to 0. So when I take the square root, I get x is equal to the square root of 0, or negative square root of 0, which is going to be the same thing. So this one has just one answer of 0. Now I has a little bit of a different look to it. You can see it still has this square term here, and then a constant on the other side. So we are going to then do the same thing. We can actually take the square root of the x plus 2 squared, and it's going to become x plus 2 is equal to the square root of 81, or x plus 2 is equal to negative square root of 81. So notice what happens when I take the square root of the quantity x plus 2 squared. So then this is going to give me x plus 2 is equal to 9. I will need to subtract 2 from both sides, and I will get that x is equal to 7. And then on the second one, we are going to say that x plus 2 is equal to negative 9. Then we'll subtract 2 from both sides and get that x is equal to negative 11. So there's our two answers, and you can double check that that works when you plug both of those into the original problem. And then this must be J, J. This one, again, you can see the square. I have the x minus 10 squared, so I want to isolate that, and I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So that's going to give me then x minus 10 squared is equal to 100. When I take the square root, I'm going to get x minus 10 is equal to the square root of 100, or x minus 10 is equal to negative square root of 100. And then finish it up. So that's going to be x minus 10 is equal to 10. Over here, x minus 10 is equal to negative 10. So we'll add 10 to both sides, and that's going to give me that x is equal to 20. Then over here, we're going to add 10 to both sides, and we'll come up with that x is equal to 0. So here are my two solutions. So example 2, we've got a few word problems, and we're going to solve them using square roots. So we got that the height of a skydiver jumping out of an airplane is given by, and so we have a formula where h is going to represent the height, is equal to negative 16, t is going to represent a time, plus 3200. So h is going to be equal to the height. In this case, does it say? Doesn't really tell you what that is, so whether it's feet or seconds. T is going to be equal to the number of seconds. So our formula then we have written there. How long will it take the skydiver to reach the ground? Okay, so if I have a picture of this that looks along those lines, he jumped out of the airplane. So he's going to jump here. He's going to hit the ground here. So the question is, if this was my x and y, this is my time in seconds, and this is going to be my height in feet or yards, whatever it happens to be, what is the value of the height when he hits the ground? So, yeah, it's going to be a 0. So when he hits the ground, the height is equal to 0. So on the ground, h has to be equal to 0. So then we have 0 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 3200. Now we're going to use our square root property, and we'll subtract our 3200 from both sides, and we'll end up with this. So we're going to get negative 3,200 is equal to negative 16 t squared. Then we'll divide both sides by the negative 16 and get that t squared is going to be equal to, 200? Positive 200. Then we'll take the square root of both sides. So I'll come over here and do that in green over here. So we'll come over here and do that in green. We'll take the square root of both sides. So that will give us that t is going to be equal to the square root of 200, which is going to be, I guess we don't really know that, so we're going to have to put that into our calculator to get it. So I'll do that right now. And I get 14.14, rounding it off to, oh, I need the nearest hundred, so I'm going to scratch that out. That would be 14.1 seconds, so 14.1 seconds. If we did the negative, we said t is also equal to negative square root of 200, that wouldn't work. That would be a negative 14.1 seconds. And of course, we can't have a negative answer. So our answer is going to be 14.1 seconds. All right, so B. A zookeeper is buying fencing to enclose a pen at the zoo. The pen is an isosceles right triangle. So you see the picture over here. We'll call both the sides X, so it makes it isosceles because they're the same. It's a right triangle. There's already a fence on the side that borders. You can see the fence that's already there. So that's already existing. A path. The area of the pen will be 4,500 square feet. So I'm just going to write 4,500 in there. That's the area. The zookeeper can buy the fencing in whole feet only. How many feet of fencing should he buy? So we know what the area of this triangle is, and because we have the right angle, we have the base and the height that goes with it. So the area of a triangle, we know the formula is 1/2 base times height. So for this one, the area we're given is 4,500 is equal to 1/2 times x times x. So 4,500 is equal to 1/2 x squared. So we see the situation where we can use that square root property. So to get rid of the 1/2, are going to multiply 3 by 2 and get 9,000 is equal to x squared. We'll take the square root of both sides, so that we'll get that x is equal to 30, or x is equal to a negative 30, which it can't be. So our x is 30. And since we have to fill both sides, we need to fence the top and the side. We're going to have 30 plus 30. So we're going to need 60 feet. Okay, so oops, the square root of 9,000, when I do it, I'll write this here. So it should be the square root of 9,000 is equal to x. Well, it's not 30. That was the square root of 900. So we'll toss this out. And when I come up with that on my calculator, I'm going to get 90. I'm going to get up here for x that x, erase this, erase all this. So we're going to have the square root of 9,000 is equal to x. And that's going to end up being 94.87 feet. So we get that. Now, we can only do it in whole feet. So again, since we have the two sides, we're going to have 95 plus 95, and we're going to get 190 feet that we're going to need. And finally, see, the surface area of a cube can be found using this formula. So we have that S is equal to 6x squared. If the surface area of the cube is 486 square centimeters, so we'll put 486 here, is equal to 6x squared. What is the length of a side x? of the cube. So to solve it, we'll divide both sides by 6, and we'll get 81 is equal to x squared. Take the square root of both sides, and we get that x is 9, or x is equal to -9. And of course, the length of the side can't be negative, so my answer is going to be the 9 centimeters for that answer. So just a matter of plugging into a formula. So move on and do your video check now.